The wedding was supposed to be the happiest day of her life, yet while hundreds of people laughed beneath the warm afternoon sun, one woman sat alone behind the garden pavilion, crying so quietly that almost nobody noticed. Her hands were trembling in her lap, her beautiful lavender dress was slightly wrinkled from sitting on the grass, and every few seconds she wiped her cheeks as though she was ashamed of her tears. I almost walked past her. I had no idea that stopping for just 5 minutes would change both of our lives forever. Before we begin, if you believe that one small act of kindness can give someone a second chance at life, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs a little hope today, and subscribe to Epic Story Hub. Sometimes, kindness costs us nothing, but to another person, it can mean everything. My name is Rowan Mercer, and that afternoon I had been invited to the wedding of an old colleague. The ceremony was being held at a beautiful countryside estate where sunlight poured through tall oak trees and white flowers lined a stone pathway leading to the reception garden. Children ran between tables, waiters carried trays of sparkling drinks, and somewhere near the dance floor, a soft piano melody floated through the warm air. Everything looked perfect. It was the kind of afternoon people photographed because they wanted to remember it forever. I was standing near the edge of the garden, holding a glass of lemonade and watching the newly married couple greet their guests, when I noticed her. She was sitting beneath an old willow tree several yards away from everyone else. At first, I thought she was simply resting. Then I saw her shoulders shake. I looked around. People were too busy taking photographs to notice. An elderly couple were laughing near the fountain. A group of bridesmaids were posing beside a wall of flowers. The bride was surrounded by relatives, receiving hugs and congratulations. Nobody seemed to see the woman beneath the tree. I told myself that perhaps she wanted to be alone. Maybe she was overwhelmed. Maybe it wasn't my place to interfere. I took one step toward the reception, then stopped. Something about the way she was trying to hide her crying bothered me. So I walked toward the willow tree and sat on the grass a few feet away from her. I didn't ask who she was. I didn't ask why she was crying. I simply sat there quietly. For almost a minute, neither of us said anything. The sounds of the wedding continued behind us, cheerful and distant, while the two of us sat beneath the moving shadows of the leaves. Eventually, she looked at me. Her eyes were red, and there was a faint smile on her face, the kind people make when they're trying desperately to convince everyone that they're okay. She thanked me for sitting there, then looked toward the wedding ceremony. The bride was laughing with her new husband near the cake table. The woman beside me watched them for a long moment before whispering that the bride was her younger sister. She told me that her name was Mireya, and she was 29 years old. She had traveled several hours to attend the wedding, carrying a small gift wrapped in silver paper and a speech she had written for her sister. But she hadn't been able to give either one. Mireya told me that everyone believed she was crying because she was happy for her sister. She wished that were the reason. Her voice became quieter as she explained that her relationship with her sister, Celine, had once been completely different. They had grown up sharing the same tiny bedroom, the same secrets, the same dreams. When their parents separated, Mireya had become the responsible one. She worked after school, helped pay bills, cooked meals, and made sure Celine had everything she needed. She said she never minded being the older sister because protecting Celine gave her life a purpose. But as the years passed, things changed. Celine went to university, built a career, met someone she loved, and slowly became distant. Mireya, meanwhile, stayed behind to care for their aging grandmother and struggled to keep her own life together. The painful part wasn't that Celine had moved forward. Mireya said she was proud of her. The painful part was that somewhere along the way, Celine had started believing that Mireya was jealous of her happiness. Every disagreement became an accusation. Every missed phone call became proof that Mireya didn't care. Eventually, they stopped talking. Mireya had tried several times to repair the relationship, but each attempt ended badly. Then the wedding invitation arrived. Mireya almost didn't come. But she remembered the little girl who used to crawl into her bed during thunderstorms and hold her hand until the rain stopped. She remembered promising that little girl she would always be there. So she came, even though she was terrified. She reached into her handbag and pulled out a folded piece of paper. It was the speech she had written. The edges were slightly bent because she had opened it so many times. She told me she had planned to stand in front of everyone and tell her sister how proud she was, how much she loved her, and how sorry she was for everything they had said to each other. But when she arrived, she saw Celine surrounded by friends and family, looking happier than she had ever seen her. Mireya suddenly felt like an outsider at her own sister's wedding. She overheard someone joking that the bride's sister had always been difficult, and another person saying Mireya probably came only because she felt guilty. None of them knew the truth. But hearing those words had broken something inside her. She had slipped away before anyone could see her cry. She told me that she had spent years believing she needed to be strong because everyone depended on her. She had become so good at pretending she was fine that people had forgotten to ask whether she actually was. Then she looked at me and said something I will never forget. She whispered, "You were the only one who noticed." There was no anger in her voice. Only exhaustion. Those 6 words carried years of loneliness. I didn't know what to say, so I told her the truth. I said that sometimes the strongest people are the ones who become invisible because everyone assumes they don't need help. I told her that crying didn't make her weak, and that coming to the wedding despite everything proved that she still cared deeply about her sister. Mireya looked down at the speech in her hands and began crying again. But this time, she didn't try to hide it. She let the tears fall. For the first time that afternoon, she didn't apologize for being hurt. A few minutes later, we heard someone calling her name. It was Celine. She was standing at the edge of the garden, still wearing her wedding dress, holding the small silver-wrapped gift Mireya had brought. Apparently, one of the guests had seen Mireya leave, and Celine had gone looking for her. Mireya immediately stood up, wiping her face. She looked terrified. She told me she didn't know whether she could handle another argument. I told her she didn't have to prepare a perfect speech. She only needed to tell the truth. Celine walked toward us slowly. For several seconds, the sisters simply stared at each other. Then Celine began crying too. She said she had found the gift in Mireya's bag after someone brought it to her, and inside was a photograph from their childhood. In the photograph, the 2 girls were sitting on the floor of their old bedroom, laughing over a broken birthday cake. On the back, Mireya had written, "No matter where life takes us, you will always be my little sister." Celine told her that she had spent the entire morning wishing Mireya would come, even though she was too afraid to admit it. Mireya finally told her everything she had been carrying. She admitted that she had been hurt. She admitted that she had felt forgotten. She admitted that sometimes she was jealous, not of Celine's happiness, but of how easily Celine seemed to have moved forward while she felt trapped in the past. Then Celine stepped closer and told her that she had never wanted to leave her behind. She had simply been young and selfish and too proud to understand what Mireya had sacrificed for her. She apologized for every time she had made her sister feel unwanted. Mireya apologized too. Not because she was responsible for everything, but because she no longer wanted pride to control their lives. They hugged beneath the willow tree while the afternoon sun warmed the garden around them. I stood quietly a few steps away, watching 2 sisters hold onto each other as though they were afraid that letting go would make the past return. Eventually, Celine asked Mireya to come back to the reception with her. Mireya smiled through her tears and nodded. When we returned to the garden, the wedding continued. Nobody made a dramatic announcement. Nobody knew exactly what had happened beneath the willow tree. But something had changed. Mireya stood beside her sister for the rest of the afternoon. Later, she finally gave the speech she had written. Her voice shook at first, but by the end, everyone was crying. Celine held her hand the entire time. As I left the wedding that evening, I realized something I had forgotten for years. We often think changing someone's life requires a grand gesture. We imagine that we need money, influence, or the perfect words. But sometimes all another human being needs is for someone to notice that they're hurting. Sometimes sitting beside them is enough to remind them that they haven't been forgotten. I never expected to become part of Mireya's story. I was just a stranger at a wedding who decided not to walk past someone who was crying. But months later, I received a message from her. She told me that she and Celine were speaking every week again. They had started having lunch together, sharing old photographs, and slowly rebuilding the relationship they thought they had lost forever. At the end of the message, Mireya wrote, "You didn't fix my life that day. You just reminded me that I was worth noticing." That sentence stayed with me. Because somewhere around us, there may be someone smiling while their heart is breaking. Someone sitting quietly at a crowded table. Someone saying they're fine because they don't want to become a burden. Someone who doesn't need advice, money, or answers. They may simply need another person to sit beside them and say, without words, "I see you." If this story touched your heart, please don't just watch and move on. Like the video, share it with someone you love, and subscribe to Epic Story Hub so we can continue bringing you stories about kindness, hope, forgiveness, and second chances. And before the story ends, I want you to do something special. Comment the words, "I see you," if you believe no one should have to cry alone. Your comment might reach someone who desperately needs to know that they matter. The next time you see someone sitting alone, don't assume they want to be left alone. The next time someone says they're okay, look into their eyes before believing them. And the next time you have a choice between walking past someone and stopping for a moment, remember Mireya beneath that willow tree. Because you never know when 5 minutes of your time might become the moment someone remembers that they still matter. Sometimes, we don't need to save a person. Sometimes, we just need to notice them.